Mitchell Moore on bass, and Derek Tappan on drums. This is the George Baker Band Extended.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action already.
Again, just remember to speak kind of close.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on the WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everybody. We started a little late because I was really anxious to kind of get a song in from Sierra Leone. And Harry, if we can still try to bring it up if possible while we're here. We have gentlemen here from Freetown. Both you guys, were you born in Freetown?
No, we were born in the province.
Born in the provinces?
Yep.
And but near Freetown?
No, far away from Freetown.
But how many miles?
I was born about 200 miles.
About 200 miles from Freetown?
Yeah.
About 52 miles.
About 52 miles from Freetown, Sierra Leone. And Kevin Staten is here with us also. Kevin, you weren't born in Freetown, and I wasn't born in Freetown, but again, we were born on the planet. And today's show is really, excuse the expression, everybody, but Planet Africa. I'm sorry, this is just Planet Africa. And I think some people talk about where the first man and woman kind of came from, and Eve. And so in some ways, if you look at DNA and history and geopolitical kind of history, we all are from Africa in terms of our DNA. So this is a universal show, but we have a chance to localize it with having two gentlemen from Sierra Leone that are here in the United States for a few days, and Kevin Staten, and we're talking about Transatlantic Histories. Transatlantic Histories. Yeah. Kevin, give us a little overview about what's cooking here in New Haven, and then we'll introduce the two gentlemen for us, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, we were selected last year to participate in a program through the Gilder Lehrman Center at Yale with teachers from Sierra Leone throughout the country. And so what happened was, as a culminating activity for part one, we went to Freetown, and that was December 26th until around January 7th. And so we stayed in Freetown. We traveled throughout the country of Sierra Leone, and we learned and studied with these teachers, and they're really scholars from the country. And so the second part of this event was they came here.
And you're calling these guys scholars?
Oh, they're scholars.
Oh, they're deep, huh?
Yeah.
Let's all right. Let's introduce yourself.
Yep. My name is Ibrahim Lamin, teacher at the Beacon High School in Freetown. I teach history and government.
I am Abubakar Kamara. I teach at the Annie Walsh Memorial School, the first school for girl education in Africa.
So for young ladies?
For young girls, yes.
Oh, for young girls. Okay, well, that's interesting. And you guys are here through Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. And your first name again?
Ibrahim.
Abraham. We're not Abraham or Ibrahim?
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim. Yeah. All right. That's what we want to get it straight.
I am Abubakar Kamara.
Abubakar Kamara. And I was talking to everybody about the children that they left behind. Or have you been in touch with the family since you've been here in the States?
Yes.
All right.
We've been in touch with them.
Everybody's well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are all well.
Great. Kevin, share with us a little bit about what's cooking. It's just such a pleasure to have folks here and talking about transatlantic history. If I can just say, Kevin, if you walk by City Hall, you've seen Cinque. If you've seen the Freedom Schooner, the Amistad, you know that New Haven also has a sister city connection with Freetown. So we have a deep roots here. And talking about transatlantic history, whether we know that Cinque made kind of that transatlantic trip to Cuba, to New London, to New Haven, and now all of us are here. And this is in 2019 kind of a one world kind of situation. And lastly, Kevin, the fact that Yale and the Gilder Lehrman Center has reached out to the mother continent to me it's very inspiring because as we talk about education moving forward into the next, let's say into literally the next century, do people have to come on site to learn? In other words, Yale and schools like this can be global broadcasters. We know about Zoom. We know about technology. We can do a live stream now. So even this show, we can send to Sierra Leone. So our definition of education does not have to be centered on bricks and mortar. Is my fact. And hopefully Yale University and universities like Yale that have made these partnerships and collaborations with the mother continent will realize that education can literally be in some ways actually free. But I digress. So share with us, Kevin, a little bit about what these gentlemen will be sharing and learning this week here at Yale University.
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to Thomas Thurston, who's the educational director, who really set this program in motion. And so if you think about it, when our area teachers in this country, as well as Sierra Leone, but especially here, going to get the chance to go overseas to actually study with the actual people and not just read about it in a book.
See,
you know,
excellent.
when we're actually in the society, you know, you come into Freetown, you're interacting, you're talking with them about the culture, you know, and even we went to a remote village called Yagala, and we were there, and we went up this mountain together as a community, and everyone in the community went up the mountain together. And, you know, it's one of those things where when are you going to experience that? And to touch on your point about a global village, Abu's brother lived in College Park, Maryland, I believe, and Ibrahim's brother, who was just down here, I think, Hartford, Connecticut.
Yep.
And he's a PhD candidate. Am I correct?
Yep.
He's working on his doctorate? Master's degree. Yep. Right. So we have, and who would have known, you know, that these teachers that we, you know, just connected with, you know, through this program have relatives. You know, there are relatives coming down to visit them while we're here at Yale.
Man, isn't that something?
From people from as far away as Canada. And so I brought these books. The professor here who's doing the work, Professor Joe Ali, he actually, his doctorate is from, I think, Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes.
And so, but he's the foremost scholar on Sierra Leone. And he's here now lecturing with us. And he was there with us in Sierra Leone, helping us learn about the country and get insight.
Tremendous. Gentlemen, share with us why this is so important. Why is this important for us to be sitting here today in this studio and being able to kind of share your expertise and your travels and your learning? Why is it important personally to you?
For several reasons. When you look at the transatlantic histories, it's a global history.
Just a little louder.
Yeah, and it represents one of the first international commerce. And I think one of the earliest things that linked Sierra Leone and the United States. And there are a lot of aspects that Sierra Leone and the United States has in common in relation to the transatlantic slave trade. And we all know that when the slave trade started in the 15th century, you know, Sierra Leone being one of the earliest places Europeans contacted, because Freetown particularly is a coastal city, you know, along the Atlantic coast. It became one of the earliest victims of, you know, the slave source.
Yes.
And since that period, there has been that link. And then we see that running through, and even at the end of the slave trade, when you look at the aftermath of that contact, the United States and Sierra Leone continue to establish some contact in relation, say, for instance, in religion and in several other aspects. Because if you trace Singbe Pierre's revolt,
and say its correct name again, because we abbreviated here.
Singbe Pierre.
And that's what we should say. Rather than Singbe, we should say
Singbe
Pierre. All right, Singbe Pierre. Good.
If you trace his revolt, you realize that one of the things that resulted in that is the establishment of an American Christian mission in Sierra Leone.
Yes.
Before that period, America had not extended their Christian missionary activities to Sierra Leone. So from that background, you see that the transatlantic slave trade has led to several other, you know, aftermath.
Yes.
You know, ranging from religion, you know, other economic activities and cultural interaction, you know. And again, this is important because when we teach history in Sierra Leone,
yes,
normally the focus is not on the other side of the Atlantic.
The what again?
when we teach history in Sierra Leone, the focus normally is not, it's not on the other side of the Atlantic.
Right.
We pay premium on the national aspect.
Yes.
We do not normally look at the cross-cultural aspect. And so I've been here, at least will help to increase our awareness of the transatlantic history over here. And that will help to at least enhance the teaching there.
Tremendous. And what grades again are you teaching?
Sorry?
What grades are you? High school?
I teach high school level, yeah.
So high school level. And I'm going to come back to you, please.
I teach in the high school.
In the high school as well? A little closer to the mic.
Yeah. And, the impact is tremendous. We have famous schools like Albert Academy, Hartford, in Moyamba. All these schools were built by the Christian missionary institution that came as a result of the Amistad Revolt. When these free slaves were repatriated to Sierra Leone, I mean, the Sengbe Pierre and his colleagues, Joseph Sinkwe, as he is known in the United States.
Yes.
When they returned, these were the famous institutions that were established by the missionaries in Sierra Leone. So that's a tremendous impact.
And and the impact on you, because you're from a religious standpoint, you're a practicing Muslim.
I'm a practicing Muslim.
So what is your relationship with the Christian schools?
Well, our tolerance. We don't care whether this is Christian or this is Muslim. We all interact together. But that's the unique feature of Sierra Leone.
Right.
I even attend funerals and go to churches.
Right.
I attend marriages. There is no barrier. We all link together.
And you eat the food at the end of the wedding. You eat the food at the back.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Right.
The only thing I don't take is communion.
Okay.
I don't take that.
Okay. Don't drink the wine.
Anything else, I participate in.
And Kevin, when you were over there, did you sense that kind of ecclesiastical approach when it really came to education?
It was huge. And in our last day, one of the things I said was that one of the major differences is they have a sense of communalism, as opposed to in the United States is competition. So this whole individualistic attitude of me, what I get there is a sense of community, and that is why you see in religion, you think about all the conflict in this country, and how we're taught and indoctrinated to view people of different religions, whether it's Islam or any other religion. Over there, it's a non-issue. So when I communicated with Abu about when we were coming over there, and they were like, yeah, this whole city is getting ready for Christmas. And I was like, getting ready for Christmas? Isn't the country like 80% Muslim or Islam? He's like, yeah, but we get ready, it's no big deal. And to me, that's once you have a sense of community, that sense of community supersedes even, your religious beliefs, because there's a big difference between being a religious person and a person of faith. People of faith connect with each other and can have a sense of community. Religious people struggle with that.
Gentlemen, let's and Kevin, thanks so much for sharing that. Again, you're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show, and we're talking about transatlantic histories and what's taking place at Yale as we speak. Kevin,
right now, the teachers and from the U.S. and Sierra Leone are participating in workshops where we're having scholars from both countries come in. So Professor Ali is here from Sierra Leone. We have David Blight here. We have Dr. Keisha Blaine is here as well. She's the main facilitator for the workshop this week. And so we're all working together. And the focus this time is on American history. In terms of African American history. So we're going from, the slave trade, the early stages, all the way up into, Black Lives Matter and contemporary issues surrounding Black America today.
Share a little bit, and Kevin, thank you for that. Share a little bit, because you mentioned the redirection of your focus in terms of your educational. Yeah. Share a little bit more about why that's important.
Yeah, that's important because we're living in a globalized world where your knowledge base should not only be focused on where you live. It's important that you also know about other places. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the transatlantic history is largely a global history.
Global history, yes.
Yeah, because several continents you are involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Europe, America, and Africa. At least, and when you look at the cult structure in our country, like I mentioned, the focus is normally on the Sierra Leonean context. And by emphasizing that, you are de-emphasizing the history of the Transatlantic on the other side of the Atlantic. And even a lot of teachers in the country have very little knowledge.
Are not aware. Okay.
Have very little knowledge about
after this show, they're going to know more.
Exactly. And so, I mean, when I say a lot of teachers,
yes.
I may not be an exception.
Okay. All right.
And even though I study some aspect of American history, not many teachers will study that in the university.
See.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably that gave me a clue, on some of the aspect of American history, but even that is not too deep. And so I think this program increases our knowledge of history, the transatlantic history in America, and that will help to reinforce the knowledge we already have.
So compliments.
Yeah, compliments.
Compliments. Exactly. Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
To me, that's very, very important.
Do you agree, disagree? You want to share or elaborate?
Sure, I agree with him.
Oh, you just saying that because you're here, because you guys are buddies.
I agree with him.
All right.
We have actually learned a lot about the American side of the history that connects to our own history.
Talk about that connection.
Today, I know that this revolt, this Sengbepie revolt, has created awareness in African Americans. I have known it. I have visited centers, that emerge as a result of this revolt.
Yes.
African Americans are now aware about us through this connection.
Right. And interestingly, we realize that Sengbepie is more celebrated here than even probably in Sierra Leone.
Yes.
More here than in Sierra Leone.
Yeah. So it tells how Americans, even not all, but at least some Americans appreciate the connection between Sierra Leone and America. And this again to me is very important for the Americans, not just Sierra Leone.
Yes.
Especially Americans who believe in racism. I think this is enough to let them know that America has always been a land of immigrants. And
Kevin, jump in on this point. He's mentioned some tag words here, racism, and jump in.
Ibrahim, we've all had great discussions. I mean, Abu and I were roommates, and so the joke was always that we were brothers. But and we still talk about it. But Ibrahim and I had a really powerful conversation about American democracy.
Okay.
And this is what he said:
American democracy or American racism.
Well, they're connected.
Okay, so let me hear you. So
they're connected. So what he said was, when we were there, it was during the government shutdown.
Okay.
And what he said is, when we studied democracy in our country, America is the flagship for a country with a functional constitutional democracy, a democratic society. So what they're seeing over here with basically all the issues that our democracy is having right now.
You're seeing the dysfunction.
He's seeing the dysfunction. And he said to me, if your country topples as a democracy, the impact on the world, the repercussions on the world, he said, because nobody else is trying to have a democracy, everybody's looking at you as the United States. So so if you fail, then in terms of the world stage, he's basically saying, you leave us to China and Russia. He said, as the other superpowers, because you're the only superpower that's a democracy. So if you fail, then the repercussions are felt on a world stage. And he put it in the context, especially in terms of Africa.
And American race. So, but I didn't quite perceive the nuance of the connection with American racism.
If you think about it, what is one of the staples of our democracy being dysfunctional is our racism. And Tim Snyder talks about this in his book. Where
the tyranny.
And he talks about the fact that the KGB studied American racism during the Cold War till now. They studied extensively, and they understood that if given a choice, they would choose racism over democracy.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we
Go closer.
it is supposed to be an example for the world to follow.
Right.
So, for it to have a higher rate of religious intolerance, racism, you know, that's a really question mark on that democracy.
Listen to the Tom Ficklin show, and your first name again?
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim and Abubakar are here visiting us, and really gets returning home, and we hope to return home at some point. But at some point, even if I've never been to the motherland, but just feeling that you're at home, feeling that you're not just located in Connecticut, feeling that you're just not, you may have ancestral roots in Pittsburgh as I do, but also what about before that? So when we think of us being a planetary human kind of thing, I think that really kind of kicks in. You have children.
Yes, I have children.
2 children.
I have 4 kids.
4 kids. Yeah. 4 kids that you're willing to talk about? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. I'm willing to talk about them.
What are their names again?
I have Mariama Kamara. I have Abubakar Kamara, my namesake.
All right.
And I have Safiatu Kamara and Fatmata Sherif Kamara.
And I'm glad you mentioned Fatima. Fatama.
You know, it is Arabic.
Arabic.
It is supposed to be Fatimata.
Fatimata.
But we shorten it by saying Fatmata.
All right. And your wife's first name?
My wife is Aisata Kamara.
I love that.
Yes.
Yep. I have 2 kids. One 7 old and the other 4 years old.
And what names have you bestowed upon them?
The first one is Hassan Lamin.
Hassan.
Yeah. And the second is Mohammed Lamin.
For your teachers, when you go back, is the school year the same, Kevin, in Sierra Leone and Freetown as it is in the United States?
No.
The school year?
I know they're in exams, right? They were having examinations when they came over to us. So we have some examinations, but I think their school year is longer.
When does your school year begin?
September.
September through
and July.
In July, so similar. Yep. When you go back in September, how will you be incorporating some of the information here in terms of your lesson plans or learning plans, or is it too premature?
Yeah, we have already started something like that.
Good.
You know, since January when they visited us, we have adopted some of the techniques. Still, so we now use it in the teaching learning.
And something very important I intend implementing when I return that is not common in Sierra Leone is visual teaching, especially using video clips.
Video clips?
Yeah. In Sierra Leone, even as civilized as the world is now, we still use traditional method teaching on the board.
Okay.
You know, and a lot of these histories we teach.
Yes.
Children don't have the feel because it is not visualized.
You see the visual.
And so
yes.
It appears to archaic then. So I think this program is important because it helps us in that. I think I was thinking of discussing that with Tom for you guys to help us some video materials about the transatlantic slave trade that we can use in the classroom to let the children feel the impact, because it's not just about explaining the theory. It is good that they see themselves the horrible nature of it.
Absolutely.
This is an aspect that is really lacking in the entire Sierra Leone in the classroom. So this is an opportunity for us at least to adopt that kind of system.
And we were at the Beinecke with Michael Moran.
Yes.
And he pulled out some literature and some visual materials. And one of the things that resonated was Tom Feeling's book, The Middle Passage, which, as you know, has no words. It's just images. And the images were so powerful.
Yes.
And one of those things with a program like this is we can develop connections and resources. I think they've even done like a video version of that book, which is, where they just show the images and walk students through it. And that would be something really powerful, for students to see. So I agree. That's definitely something that we'll work on.
Tremendous. And it's possible that even some of the reference to the books of the 2 authors, it's possible that some of their lectures might be on YouTube or Coursera. Or
these are both by Dr. Joe Ali, and one is Sierra Leone Since Independence, and the other one is A New History of Sierra Leone. He was tremendous. One of the things we talked about was one of the past presidents, Shaka Stevens, and he organized a major conference of all the African countries. I believe this is in the 80s, where he has them come in and they spend all this money. He bankrupts the treasury. I think he spends around $200 million.
Yep.
And so, Americans, you get into that whole cultural ethnocentrism where you look at another country and say, oh, that's so terrible that they did that. And you're like, $200 million. Wait a minute. Hasn't $120 million been spent on security for the current president's families in New York and at Mar-a-Lago and in D.C.? And wait a minute, $72 million on golf trips? I mean, it's one of those things where the money's being spent, but in a country like this, it has this wealth.
Yes.
You don't see it, but, people are starting to feel it now, in terms of the tariffs and other things that they're responding to.
Indeed.
So there's this connection, this correlation where people look at those leaders and say, oh, I can't believe they spent all that money. And it's like, well, you do that here too.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin and gentlemen, let's see if we can expand upon the vision where we've talked about teaching technology and pedagogy, but how can we scale up? What's your vision? I mean, you mentioned having more access to video, et cetera. Is the state of the internet? What's the state of the internet in Sierra Leone? How can we scale up and really in every high school? Like you guys just work in one school, but in every school in Sierra Leone, how can we scale up and have the same resources available to every high school in Sierra Leone?
The internet is a challenge in Sierra Leone, I must say. In fact, a lot of schools don't have a computer system. They don't even have a computer lab. But what is common there is videotapes.
Okay,
that's common. I think schools can afford to get videotapes, although very probably they will also struggle to get a projectors, but they are available anyway. Projectors are available, and if the videotapes can be available, we can utilize the little video facilities we have to.
So this gets back to your point about resources and sharing it and waste versus efficiency, as I hear it.
Right.
Are there any campaigns to increase the educational budget? I'm using just kind of general terms in Sierra Leone, or can any international people contribute, or can any foundations contribute, or if someone is listening to this show, if they wanted to make an investment in Sierra Leone educational architecture?
Yeah, there are campaigns, and the government currently is leading that campaign. If we are following the last elections in 2018, the flagship program of the current president was education, free quality education for primary school, secondary, all to both junior and senior secondary. Awards from the primary level all to the secondary level, what we call high school here. And as I speak to you, that is
it's going on.
Being implemented.
Being implemented.
Yes, it's in progress. And as I talk to you now, that program is being implemented, and is attracting a lot of donor support, especially from Europe.
Is that just 1 second? Are we good with audio for you? We're good. Okay, so gets to speak a little bit closer to it. Yeah, good.
So as I was saying, that program is being implemented as I speak, and it has gained a lot of momentum, and a lot of international partners are like supporting the program, including the United Kingdom.
Good.
I have not heard of America anyway.
Good.
Supporting that.
Good.
But I think the government being the leading, implementing
good.
Body for that
good.
can be a very good source to get whatever support people want to do. But apart from that, I think donors can also go through some individual schools if they want to. And because when you look at the program, it's only focusing on government and government-assisted schools. And the country has independent schools, as we sometimes call them.
Independent schools as well.
Yes, schools that are not really supported by government, but are also promoting education in line with the government's requirements.
Excellent.
But they are just self-sponsored. And most of these schools are constrained in the sense that the children have to pay for the services.
Yes.
And considering the economic situation in the country, there are a lot of parents who are struggling to meet that. But all of them cannot send their children to government schools and government-assisted schools.
Indeed. Just as you were chatting, I want to come to...
When Ibrahim was talking about the internet being a challenge, I laughed quietly.
You laughed?
Because in my school, we have a well-advanced internet facility. We have a lab, an internet lab, and computer science is one of our subjects.
Yes.
That we teach in our school. And we'll have an international body from the United States here supporting that computer lab
yes.
in my school. So the internet is not a challenge at all.
But does that international body that's supporting your school need to expand their resources to some of the other schools? They're doing a lot.
They are doing a lot.
All right, let me
put other schools.
For our school,
but not all the schools.
But the point I was saying, not just for one school.
But not all, but not his school.
Yeah, I was just talking about one school.
Your school is a private
and besides, I'm coming.
That's why.
And besides, no, the point I was trying to make. Remember, I'm not talking about my school.
Defend yourself.
We are discussing Sierra Leone.
Stand up. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
I'm not talking about my school. We are talking Sierra Leone.
Right.
The point I mentioned. I'm coming. The point I mentioned. Most schools in Sierra Leone, that I would challenge anybody.
Yes.
The internet generally, not just in schools. In fact, even in government offices.
And the reason I want to raise, Kevin, the reason I wanted to raise this issue is this week, and this is kind of an aside, but people are used to this when I do a show. This week there are hearings in Congress in terms of reparations. Our House of Representatives is beginning to hold hearings on reparations, and there's a lot of discussion about even if reparations is an idea that we agree on cognitively, how do you implement it? But you started off with in terms of the slave trade and Sierra Leone being one of the focal points and the major depot centers and manufacturing centers, use that expression. So you want to look historically, is Sierra Leone still eligible for reparations from the United States given the initial exploitation of your country? So there's various ways to look at, in my mind, how to still redirect resources, and I would not even say redirect, but invest more economically and feasibly for the future of the planet. So this is great. Your tribe?
I am a Timni.
A Timi.
I'm a Mende Timini.
And Kevin looks like he's in what tribe?
Kevin is in my tribe. See the resemblance. Kevin is my
brother.
I thought he was a Christian
brother.
and a Baptist. You can be a Christian, a Baptist, a Mende,
and still be part of a tribe.
And still be part of the tribe.
That's the United States influence on him.
Yeah, I'm good.
And we were just talking about the independent schools versus privately independent schools, private schools, government schools, and even in America where you have all these, Yale's a private institution, Harvard's a private institution, you have all these private independent secondary schools. So this whole nonprofit legal scheme sometimes is not for the detriment, it's for the detriment of sometimes many and not for the benefit of many. So really, in terms of going back to my original question, Kevin, how can we scale up, coming back down to the planet, to our location right now on a Monday, Transatlantic Studies program that's going on? How can we scale up this program? Are the programs this week being videotaped? What's the next session? What's the next phase of it? What's Tom's commitment? What's the Gilder Lehrman's commitment to making this grow?
What we were able to do in our initial visit that was really powerful was we connected with the teachers about specific supplies.
Good.
So we brought over products for women, bags of women's, supplies. We brought over textbooks that people could use in schools. And it really becomes a thing where you want to expand on that.
Okay.
And develop
so just the basic supplies that we take for granted here a lot.
That we take
States.
for granted, and then extend that into supporting what Ibrahim was talking about, the schools in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the technology. That's a huge thing, is putting the things in place, because that's what a lot of schools need. And and if you can do that, and then also with schools that have the resources already, like Abu's school, then you say, okay, we're going to develop internet-based programs or computer-based programs because your school has the resources to do that. And we actually have time built in this entire week where we actually sit down and meet and plan and figure out what that's going to look like.
So you're planting the seeds for strategic scale up?
Right.
For sustainability.
Right. Sustainability.
For increased participation.
Yeah.
It's so important. So important, gentlemen. So important. So have you visited the United States before?
No, this is my first visit.
First visit? Okay, welcome.
This is my first visit.
First visit. Well, I still haven't gotten to Sierra Leone, so maybe I'll have a chance to do my first visit.
Try and get to Sierra Leone.
I want to.
And yesterday we were in Harlem. We were in New York. We started in Harlem at Abyssinian
Baptist Church.
Abyssinian Baptist Church, Calvin Butts. And then we had time to break, and we were in Times Square. We were in Rockefeller Center, and we also went to the memorial, the 9/11 memorial for the Twin Towers.
Did you get to the African burial ground?
Yes, we did. Yes. We did get to the African burial ground on Wall Street.
Tell us a little bit about the African burial ground, because again, you referenced, and I guess as we kind of conclude, we've talked about the visual reality. When I say visual reality, bricks, mortar, history, buildings, transportation. But there's also a spiritual reality as well. That whether you believe it or not, we do have these words that kind of convey. When you went to the African burial ground, and again, if people don't know about, just Google African burial ground. But many of us, when we passed away, were not provided with honorable burials. Not to mention the fact when folks got on that free. When they got on the boat from your home country, they may not have made it to the States or to the Caribbean and kind of had a water burial, either from volition or pushed over. But I make a long story short, many of us have died without any sense of recognition or honor or even celebration about the sacrifice that they've made. When the African burial ground, when you guys visited, did it have any meaning to you? Did you think about it while you were there?
Yep.
Share with me if you would.
I think when I went there yesterday, I saw again the connection between Sierra Leone culture in terms of burial culture and the slaves who were brought here. You begin to see that you begin to have the sense of Sierra Leone business. I tried to read through some of the information there on the ground, and it tells me that even as I speak, the cultural practices in Sierra Leone in relation to funerals had existed since this period.
Yes.
And up till now, it has not changed. So there's still that connection when I went through the literature there.
Yes.
And secondly, I almost shed tears. I remember I was standing with one of my American colleagues, Matt, told him that this is one of the greatest crimes Europe committed against Africa.
Indeed.
And because when I saw the graves, of course, the way they were laid depict against Sierra Leone and nature, and anyway, only God knows how I felt. I just told him, no, this is a crime that Europe cannot compensate Africa for.
That's right.
As far as I'm concerned, no amount of preparation can actually heal the wounds of what these people went through. So imagine even after, many years of the transatlantic slave trade, ended, and I'm still getting the impact as if it's just happening.
Yes.
It's wondered,
a present reality.
Yes, I just wondered those who actually witnessed such horrible, what kind of psychological impact that had on them. It was actually not a good experience.
Well, and there's a lot of literature just in terms of how memories are translated and transported and passed along to each generation. That trauma that might have happened 5 decades ago, 4 decades ago, 3 decades ago, 2 decades ago, 2 days ago is transferred in terms of our family tree. Go ahead.
Well, for a very long time, when I listened to the radio about that burial ground, my heart was very heavy. But when I went there and saw the graves physically and read the literature, that some of these kidnapped Africans were actually buried in coffins. They were shrouded. I felt a kind of satisfaction. At least justice has been done to an extent by burying them decently. But on the other side again, when I look at it, I felt like crying. That these people, they were deprived of their families.
That's right.
Stolen from Africa, brought here, subjected to, untold suffering. Servitude that was not paid for. Therefore, these people, their descendants must be compensated. There must be reparations. They must be given reparations. The African Americans must be given equal rights. Up to this time, there are no equal rights. I have seen where African Americans live their residencies at how do you call that place?
we went. We actually went on a walk, so I took them from Yale over into the Newhallville area.
The wealth disparity.
Yes, I saw the wealth disparity, and besides that, one condition imposed that if one in any resident, one person commits any crime, the entire family has to leave the quarter. That's the caution place of them. That's racism. Let the person who commits his or her crime carry the punishment, not all the family. But it's a kind of racism. You know, it's a kind of segregation, as far as I know.
Yes.
And look at the areas, the deprived areas.
No,
you know.
No, well, I definitely have an awareness of what you're chatting about, and you just committed yourself, although you didn't say it. You're going to have to call back. It's 5 hours difference in Sierra Leone now. 6 hours?
5 hours.
5 hours?
It's 5 hours.
So we're going to have you guys call back in the fall. Kevin will be here in the studio. Both of you, see if you can call back, and we're going to continue this discussion because
that would be great.
That's really important to us. Really important. It's one world now. We can communicate instantaneously. We kind of wrap it up because the next show's coming on. But I really want to thank all of you guys. And Kevin, I'm tempted to have you say a prayer, but we can't do that. Or is there a something in the Quran, a phrase that you could share with us in Arabic as we close?
Yes,
please.
For those Africans lying down there in the burial grounds, I want to say, Inna lillahi wa inna lillahi rajihun, which means we come from Allah, and to Him we shall all return one day. Everything that we own, and even ourselves, we shall go to Allah because we came from Him.
Thank you. Harry, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. It's really appreciated.
All right.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next month.
All right. See you soon.
Let's just be happy. Forget your worries. Let's just be happy. Step down and boogie. You should be happy. Let's just be happy. Open your mind, let your soul be free. Let the music take control of your heart. Let's just be happy.